If you're a founder and a deal has ever slowed down or quietly died, you know that moment. Everything's moving, revenue is growing, advisors are excited, and you think, this is it! And then suddenly something changes. The process slows down, questions start coming in, momentum disappears. And here's the part that founders don't realize until they're in the middle of it. It's usually not because the business isn't good. It's because the structure underneath the company was never built to support where the business was going. I'm thinking about a company I worked with over the last several years as I say this. Great founder, strong vision, real momentum. But as the company grew, a few early decisions quietly shaped what the company could and couldn't do later. And none of those decisions looked dangerous at the time. Let me walk you through the 4 places this shows up. Number 4, intellectual property. Founders often assume the company owns its IP because it paid for it or because it was created internally. But without clear assignments, that's not always true. In this particular company, one of the founders had helped create a lot of the early IP. When we were reviewing the documents early on, there were some gaps that raised questions. Those concerns were flagged more than once, but leadership trusted the people involved and believed everything would work itself out. Years later, it turned out the founder had been making side grants tied to the company's IP and ultimately defrauding the company and its investors. What could have been investigated early became a major crisis. And when there are questions about whether the company has clear title to its IP, raising additional capital becomes impossible. Investors simply don't fund uncertainty around a company's most valuable asset. Third is governance. Operating agreements and ownership structures usually get drafted early and then they sit untouched for years. Everyone's aligned until they're not. In the company I mentioned, the governance documents had originally been written anticipating a different kind of investor base than the one that actually developed. So today, relatively routine decisions often require going back to early investors for approvals. The leadership team moves quickly, but the governance framework wasn't built for that pace. And that kind of friction shows up when flexibility matters most. Second, equity. Early in a company's life, it's common to reward the people who believe in the vision. But equity decisions made too early, without strong vesting schedules or repurchase rights, can quietly limit your options later. In this particular company, meaningful equity had been granted to early employees before anyone really knew who would prove essential long term. Some of those people left, others were fired, others simply didn't end up being central to the company's growth. But the equity stayed in the capital structure. So today, the founder, who's also one of the company's largest lenders, faces a very difficult situation. He needs to raise capital without over-diluting the common shareholders, while ownership remains with people who are no longer rebuilding the company. Equity is the easiest thing to give away early, and it's one of the hardest things to fix later. And finally, the biggest place I see this happen is capital. Founders consistently underestimate how much capital it'll actually take to build the business they envision. Growth almost always takes more time and more money than expected. In this case, the company financed itself through a series of bridge structures instead of raising enough capital to confidently move to the next stage. Each bridge solved the immediate problem, but over time, the capital structure became layered and complicated. And now the company's trying to figure out how to recapitalize in a way that allows the founder to maintain control while keeping the business moving forward. And that's what being legally stuck actually looks like. Here's the hard truth most founders don't hear early enough. Once you're legally stuck, there's rarely a clean or inexpensive fix. The longer these issues sit, the fewer options you have and the more leverage shifts away from you. This isn't about perfection. It's about building a structure that can actually support where your business is going. If you're a growth stage founder preparing for capital, an acquisition, and eventual exit, and you're not completely sure your structure will hold, that's exactly the moment when strategic guidance matters. Because good deals aren't built at the closing table. They're built a long time before anyone shows up. We've put together a deal readiness checklist that walks through the key structural things founders need to have covered before a deal is on the line. It can save you time, money, and a lot of unnecessary stress. And in some cases, it can literally protect millions of dollars in value. Click on the link below and download the checklist. It's a simple step that can make a massive difference.